I remember opening my eyes and noticing that I was lying on the floor. I'd passed out while all I can recall was trying to make it to the bathroom to get a cold towel. I was feeling faint and weak, but I pulled myself up to close the toilet seat and noticed all these weird mucus like things in the toilet, and they had eyes. I cried out in fear, wondering what was happening to my body. It was very, very disturbing to see. Welcome back to the channel. I pray that you all are healthy and doing well. This is part 11, episode 11, and the channel are Heart Like Esther's. After sitting in my car in the Target parking lot, and that's where I left off at part 10, I I was praying to the Lord for rescue and guidance during this frightening time. It was very eventful and a stressful time, to say the least. I found an apartment the very next day after just praying, asking Him, like to help me. Otherwise, I'm getting back on the road because I was just tired of going through all the ups and downs with different people and different places. So I drove back to my aunt's house. It was evening that by this time when I arrived, I had sat in that parking lot for about 4 hours. It was closing almost, and the day turned into nighttime, and I just remember driving to get some food, and by that time I got back to my aunt's. It was well into the night. I spoke briefly as I entered the house, and I went straight to the room that I was staying in that was belonged to my little cousin. The next day, my little cousin, seemed to be feeling some, I guess, conviction from the Lord because I've been praying and praying, like, just remove evil away from this home, and she didn't apologize, but I saw her crying, and you know, um, she mentioned that my aunt had anointed her with some oil, and she, felt the need to seek therapy. She didn't know what was going on with her, and I just hugged her and told her that it was okay. Um, she I couldn't figure this thing out at the time, but after, later on, once really start growing in my spirituality, I knew that, they have been compromised and used by the devil against me. And so while we was talking, one of her friends called who happened to be a realtor. Yeah, these young people today be out here doing their thing. And she mentioned that I was looking for a place, and he suggested that we tour an apartment building where his best friend worked because, like, everything was still shut down and people wasn't really renting the apartments. No one was in their buildings. They weren't working at this time. But this particular apartment building was one of the ones that were and had vacancies and was actively leasing units. So she and I drove over there, and the apartments were nice and doable. But if it weren't for the pandemic, I probably wouldn't have chosen you know, this particular building. However, at the time, I was desperate, and I took the opportunity. I just sat outside in the car. I was so desperate because we weren't allowed to go in. They came out to talk to me. Well, she did, and the office was closed to prospective renters due to COVID. So they would come out. and speak to you. But I just sat in the car and filled out everything online. I was just wanting to get into a space alone and be by myself and just figure these things out. And so she was mentioning that I couldn't see the apartment. And like, I had already tried to rent too and lost money. So I thought at the time I wasn't getting any responses, and I had, you know, paid out more than a few $100s, and hadn't received a response or my money back. So I was like needing to see something, like brick and mortar. I wanted to touch and feel and walk through. So I just, something inside me say, ask her, like offered her a couple of dollars on the table, um, so that I can maybe come back later in the evening when things were closed and to view an apartment, one of the units. As a result, she let me see 3 units. So I was very happy, and I selected one, and I moved in within 3 days. She was able to do the credit and background check, spoke to my previous landlord from the city I had just moved from. I've been there for 9 years. I know I mentioned maybe earlier in one of the videos it was 16, but it was nine. 9 years I was in that place, where I came from previously. People don't move out their place because it's very difficult to find a place. It's overcrowded for one and very expensive, and but so she only had to confirm, you know, that one rental, because, I have been there for so long and there was no need to reach out to others because, I think they only check up to 5 years. But once I received the keys, I went to Walmart, bought an air mattress, a TV, and one of those, lawn chairs, the ones you take to the barbecue or to the um, local park where they're having like a jazz fest. I got one of those and one of those little folding like side tables, and I used it to put my TV on. And when I wasn't watching TV, I used it for eating. And when I was in eating, it was my workstation, my laptop and my work area. I didn't know when I would be able to purchase proper furniture since everything was closed due to the pandemic. But I soon discovered that all the stores were selling their products online through their website. So I just felt free. Like I didn't have to deal with people, anybody being compromised. But at the time, I didn't know this was all compromised. I was just in my feelings thinking this was personal, like something is wrong with me or with my, everyone I come in contact with, family members, friends, friend of a friend. I just was thinking in my mind, like, I'm finally stable. I had some privacy, and I just wanted to be alone at that time. I was like not feeling well. And like I said, I was suffering in silence. I wasn't sharing what was going on with me with anybody because I didn't want anyone to look at me crazy. But, people could see something was happening, like my skin. I wanted to actually share um, one or two photos from where my skin and my hair was just falling out. It was a scary sight, but I haven't got that bold yet to like actually put them on the slides. Maybe at the end of my story, I will share it. But like just you can notice different photos where, like I said, my hair is different. At some points, it will grow back because I was researching like different things like natural that will keep my hair follicles in check. And it was like chanterelle mushrooms, grinding them like the dry chanterelle mushrooms, and adding like 180 proof vodka, like a tincture, and you would put it in one of those amber bottles and let it sit for like a week before you start actually using it. But that's where some of the photos where my hair was started to like thicken, like it actually got thicker than what it normally be. And as a woman in her 50s, I still had really healthy thick hair up until they started casting these spells, these beauty spells and things of that nature. But again, at the time, I didn't know what this was all, what was happening to me. And so it got really interesting after I moved in. So on the second day in my apartment, I went to the storage. The first day I was just so tired, I fell asleep. I didn't. If anything was haunting me, I wouldn't have known. It just really did their thing because I was knocked out. But the second night, I was well awake. I went to the storage earlier because I got a small locker unit to put the things that I had brought and packed up my car with, mostly clothes and a few devices and things of that nature. And so um, I remember like just getting the things into the house. I didn't want to drive around with that stuff, so I put it into the locker. And I didn't want to have like be shuffling around that stuff from place to place in those temporary stays that I was in at that time. So shuffling from hotel and then from house to house. So I went and got my things, and just one thing I wanted to share. I I brought with me my this over the door mirror, which opened up and it had storage on the inside, and I had it actually on the inside of my closet, and where I came from. Right, so it had all my little accessories for my work attire, and just in case, at the time when I was packing up my car, I didn't know we were going in like the pandemic stay in place lockdown, like I said earlier in some of the videos, that this was a plan before that even, started. We started seeing it in the States, and the media was sensationalizing it at the time. So, but, um, and I just like wrapped it in like a sheet and like this like thick paper and laid it across the seat and then just packed stuff over it. However, when I got everything situated in my apartment, mostly clothes, and that mirror, something strange happened. I uncovered the mirror, and immediately when I walked out of the bedroom to throw away the paper that I had covered it with, as I approached the room again, I felt a sense of discomfort. Like I noticed too, it got dark, like the lights dimmed. I know no one was there, It's as if someone was in my place in that room. And I know I was the only person there. And so I just got this uncomfortable feeling just came over me. And so once I entered the room, I was a little apprehensive of actually entering the room. I felt the presence, like something just like ran across the room, and I just was like, "Am I in my mind?" Or by this time, I went and turned on all the lights in the place, and I went back into the room and I noticed my laptop, it was already on. I left it on, and it like was starting to crash, like out of nowhere, like displaying like a black screen with lines. It was just weird, but my nervous system was like on high alert. I started feeling that feeling that I experienced, like the same fear I had felt in my last apartment. And I just started praying, and I reminded myself that I wasn't going to be afraid this time. I realized, I just kept, always thinking about this stuff. And I felt like the fear was affecting my nervous system and my nervous and immune system. And at that moment, I still didn't connect these strange sensations to the evil female witch spells manifesting as sickness and illness in my body, which were the strange developments that was happening and the movements that were occurring in my body. But when I went to bed later that evening, I was very hesitant to turn off the lights in the room. So I just slept with the lamp on. I didn't want to because I had a high bill from where I left because I was sleeping on with the lights on for months until actually a year in some months until my lease was up. I couldn't sleep in that apartment by myself with those lights off. So, as I was laying down, I was very tired, but I was still like on edge. I felt like something was coming out of the mirror at the corner, like it was situated in the corner, like the corner of at the foot of my bed, and like I can sense like an energy. Like my nervous system had took so much from all of this stuff. Like my energy was very sensitive, or I was sensitive to energy. I could feel it. I was like coming from that direction. And suddenly, like, I was thinking it. And then all of a sudden, like, I felt like that paralysis. Like, I got like stuck, like something was holding me down, like one of those episodes again. And I couldn't talk. And I instantly, like, started to yell, like in my mind, Jesus, Jesus. And then it let me go. And so I jumped up and I pled the blood of Jesus over that space, over the entire home. And I remember walking around, my entire apartment while praying Psalms 91. And I just couldn't sleep. I was up all night until like dawn, until like it became daylight outside. At some point, I must have fallen asleep. And when it was light outside. But when I opened my eyes, I felt very faint. And I remember, I was faint and a little nauseous, and I also felt like I had diarrhea all at the same time. So I remember like running to the bathroom, running for some air. Like as I go to the bathroom, I, pass where you turn the AC switch on and off. And I remember hitting that as I'm going to the bathroom. And all I remember is waking up on the floor with my like underwear around one ankle and my hair curlers like scattered all over, the floor. And I was just drenched in sweat. And I like just laid there like, What's happening?" Like one of those at, like I used to pass out a lot. I didn't know that later on those were like they were sending like the spirit of death, you know? And so like and that's why I was like so messed up because I had hit my head so many times till like it will frighten me like to like go outside or even drive sometime, because I didn't know what it will happen again. But for some odd reason nothing was happening to me, but I would be like really in pain. Like I broke my nose once, and then I think I refractured it because it happened again and I fell on my face. Like these people were very evil. Like they were really trying to unalive me and swap my destiny. And so um, I didn't realize it at the time that I was like, when I had that those paralysis and like the headaches, and those were curses and spells like these demons would be spewing, and they would be, that's been sent my way. And I didn't know if they were astral projecting again or if this spirit had traveled with me inside that mirror, all this time. However, once I pulled myself together and got up off the floor, I went to the toilet seat was up, and I never have my toilet seat up. And so I went to close it, and I'm looking in there, and it's like this mucus-like substance. I must have sat on the toilet and fell off the toilet. I know again this is too much information, but the Lord wanted me to give full details, and so. Some were light, while others of these things were like vein like appearances. Like they would look like big, meaty veins, but they were big, long, thick, resembling like a mucoid like creature. And they had eyes. This is when I panicked. The first thing I did was grab my phone and take a picture because I knew no one would believe me. And I went and found one of the plastic, like spoon or forks, eatery, and I grabbed one, like to put in a like a little container, because I was going to the emergency room and I was going to show them like this is what's happening to me. And like I wanted to take it as a sample, not knowing, it's a way you're supposed to do that, and they wasn't gonna. It just they looked at me like I was crazy and was trying to say it was something from my stomach lining. I was freaking out. I felt a heavy presence surrounding me, and I had a migraine headache that just like that headache again. I couldn't kick. And I didn't know too that these things were like, that's why my skin was breaking out so bad, because they were like moving to my like scalp and into my face. And yeah, so once I, pulled myself together, I hopped in the shower, put on something, and I went to throw that mirror out. I wanted to burn it, but I'm like, where can I do this and someone won't call the cops on me, like because they had dumpsters in different places. I didn't want them to think, anyone to think, I just like faced it down and took it to like behind there was a Publix supermarket directly across from the apartment. So I went over there and I took it. And yeah, a couple of people saw me, but they didn't say anything. But I didn't want it in my apartment. I didn't know what. I was just freaking out. And when I returned, I called 911 for the paramedics to come because I was too afraid to drive. I didn't feel well at all. But, these witches, they use like candles to cast spells and project negative energy and incantations, enchantments against individuals, while, often placing their photos and personal items of theirs, hair, whatever. Remember, I said I let her use my bathroom one time, and they place these items on their satanic altars, and in the nighttime, that's when they like doing these enchantments, and they also consult more experienced root workers and witch doctors or spiritualists, whatever you want to call them. Different cultures, different names, and they use these people to summon harmful spirits and perform rituals or like blood sacrifices. And as a result of these practices, you may start to experience various negative effects in your life, like, what happened to me, So, anyways, I just, I've been going through some stuff lately, but I wanted to get another one of these videos. They're so long, it's a lot to tell, but I'm going from start to like every detail until like the previous years where like I'm starting to see light in my life and God is moving and shifting things around. But no weapon formed against me or any of us shall prosper. Every tongue that rises against us in judgment, we shall condemn it in the name of Jesus Christ. And this is the heritage of the servants of the Lord, according to Isaiah 54 and 17. So I want to wish you all, the best, and be well. And please come back for episode 12. In Jesus' name.